Hi, welcome to Wide Open Road Art's Roving Conversation series. This conversation is with Clare Davies. Clare exhibited at Wide Open Road Art in 2016. She has a diverse practice involving painting, printmaking, sculpture and animation. Visually pleasing use of colour or composition is interrupted through a disquieting sense of flotation. Thank you, Clare, for coming and talking to us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. So we just wanted to start just sort of getting the background on your, your life as an artist. So how, and when did you start making art?
After school, I was into art at school.
Yeah.
And I actually got into an arts degree, and then I wasn't 100% sure about that. I did a year 13 art and design course, which was Brighton Bay. I think it's still going. And from there, so I deferred my arts degree, and then from there I got into printmaking at VCA. And so when I got in there, I just thought, I'm going to, go for this, and I had a wonderful time there. And I loved that course. Great lecturers, and met lots of people, and then I don't know how deliberate I was in I'm going to be an artist, and I think it was all a bit naive and just enjoying what I was doing. I was pretty serious about it at uni. I was pretty diligent. After the first year I almost failed, but after that I really got into it.
Yeah.
And then I went overseas straight after finishing uni. Went and lived in Scotland for a while, and London, and anyway, so that's sort of I suppose I went to uni, really. That's kind of the beginning.
And so you said that you really enjoyed uni. What was it about uni that you enjoyed? Like, was it the sort of development of your practice, or the sort of the network that you developed? Or
I really got into my work in second and third year.
Great.
Yeah, I really connected with a lot of the lecturers, and I had a lot of fun with my co-students. I was really into my work, and it was, I guess, you're young at that age, aren't you? You can just completely devote yourself.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Just feels so long ago.
So luxurious.
I was just exploring my kind of, I guess, my story and my narrative, and through pictures and colour and that sort of thing. When I look back, I think, just kept making work, and it was very much a kind of diaristic type of work. So it's really quite instant, really.
So how is sorry, Suze.
No, I think you're probably going to ask the same question.
I don't know. I was just going to say, so how has it developed from there? Like, are you still, are you still doing that, basically?
I'm not making the same work. I'm not making nearly as much work. In fact, I'm my practice has really slowed down.
Of course. Yeah.
In the last 2 years, or even before that?
Since having a child, but even before then.
Yeah.
I lived in Perth, and I sort of, when I came back from overseas, I found it hard to kind of find a way to kind of, I guess, make it work. And then when I went to Perth, that's sort of where I had a period of, 5 or 6 years where I was able to show, and I had a studio, and it was really a wonderful time for me. But then, so probably about, I think it's about 6 years ago now, must be 6 years ago, I moved back from interstate, and that's sort of when my practice started to slow down. And then I had B, I just almost feel like I'm just pottering now. And I think also having a child adds another, how can I say it? Shifts your relationship to your work again, or it has for me.
So how do you see that? What are the changes?
I really feel like it. I used to approach my work from a kind of my inner world, my kind of. Golly, I just haven't spoken about this anymore.
My subjective, internal.
Yeah. I guess a conversation with myself. And would follow different ideas, not even ideas, but just different paths. And I used to, really enjoy that. Now I don't have access to that inner world in the same way, I don't feel.
Yeah, so true.
and I'm more external as a person, and it's sort of, and at the same time, I'm probably more isolated than I was. So it's this weird period of time, and I know it won't last forever. I still want to keep my toe in. I'm still making, I've got a little studio at home, which is great, and I'm making some sculptures. But actually, just to go back to your question before, I think my work did leave that kind of diaristic sort of approach, probably, when I started getting into sculpture, and it was more about making things that existed in the world in more of a sort of forceful way, in an external way, rather than something on a page that's more, that is able to be more, I guess, intimate.
So in a way, it's like your practice kind of preempted what you've gone through in terms of, from the internal to external.
But I'm not sure what's going to happen in this next period, because I'm also, because I'm sort of, I don't know if I've explained it very well, but because I'm now feeling more, my approach is more out in the world. I'm not even sure about art in a way, or what it means. It just sounds so ridiculous.
No, it's perfectly
Yeah.
understandable. So you're reconsidering those decisions that you made as a young person when you were saying that it was just like, okay, this is me, this is what I'm doing. Is that so? Is it like you've got an opportunity to think about who you might be now?
I think so. I'm not concerned about leaving it behind necessarily, or changing tack. I feel quite excited about that, but it is actually something I enjoy doing very much. I know that because when the few things I've made since B was born, I've found it really exciting again and had that feeling. So, but it's just a bit stop-start, and I think it's also about perhaps working with other people. There's also another layer for me, which is actually bringing things into the world, like objects. I'm also not 100% certain about whether that's something I want to do anymore.
I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
Does that contrast with, say, do you think that's informed by motherhood, do you think? Or
I think it is, but I think it's also something that seems to be kind of going on. I get a sense that there's a bit of that going on in the world at the moment.
What do you think that's why? What do you think that's connected to?
I haven't been able to put my finger on it yet, but just I guess it's around the state of the world at the moment, our consumer society,
objects,
all
materialism,
and the sort of overabundance of things and stuff, and landfill and all that sort of thing.
Do we need more objects?
Yeah, and there's something that's disturbing for me. That's disturbed. That I'm not able to justify this sort of. It's not about beauty, because I think beauty is still very important, but it can manifest in many different ways. And I'm still trying to work out that one. But,
That sort of leads to these questions that you've been asking people about where they might see their art practice in the future, and I guess it sounds like you're saying it may or may not continue, or it could take different.
Yeah. I think I would like to work with other people more.
So in collaborative art projects? Or?
Yeah, collaborative art. Well, whether it's collaborative art projects, but
I'm just working with people.
Yeah, I just actually like to be in the world with my creativity, I guess, in a slightly different way. I'm not sure what that looks like.
I had that when having children. I felt like I focused a lot on abstract and objects, and then since having kids, it's been like I want to work with people. Something about the exchange and being in relationships, and just, I don't know, it's suddenly shifted.
I think some people's work probably lends itself to that sort of
it's already
transition.
Whereas if it's not there, I think you can feel like
it just feels a
the
bit jarring.
reward's missing, or something very deep is not there, or not that it's not very profound, but it's a different you, I think. Well, it was for me anyway.
So what do you think the role of the artist is? Does that tap into?
Yeah. I still feel that the role of the artist is just to really speak their truth, or talk about what they want to talk about with regards to the way, how they see the world or feel the world. I mean, I guess it's a simple thing, and in a way, they don't have to have a role either. I mean, I don't think they have to do anything. They don't have to disrupt anything or be political or anything like that. I mean, even if the world is falling apart. But I guess that's a very grandiose way of looking at it. But I think it's important for the artist to be, free to express themselves in how, take on the idea of the role. Well, actually, no, I don't know.
No, I think it's a very interesting point.
It is.
And I think maybe it's important that there are people in society who are free just to express, and maybe that's the role of the artist, is that they are the voice of what's going on and they don't actually have to be consciously serving any politic. Maybe it's just about the freedom to express, and that that needs to exist. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I also feel this idea of the artist should be paid and that sort of thing. Like, I don't actually agree with that myself. Yeah, I think it's a choice as well. Like, I don't feel like it's a role that society necessarily is responsible to support. It for me, I think that would interfere with the freedom of the artist and the expectation that the society has on them. So yeah, I think it's a personal decision, and then from there it's up to you. And I think that's where also I get a bit stuck with galleries and the commercialisation of work, and that also leads into if you're creating objects or things that exist in the world, and also you've got to eat.
Would be my next question.
So many children, so it is it can be complicated for some people. It's complicated for me.
So, the question of surviving as an artist is something that we keep coming back to. We'd be interested in your experience of that. Like you say, you've got to eat, and art generally doesn't create a lot of returns.
Yeah. Well, in the past, what's worked for me is to work for a period of time and then use that money to support myself, to create a show.
Yeah.
But I've often, had part-time jobs to support my arts practice. I find working full-time doesn't work for me.
No, not if you're trying to make...
Yeah.
I agree.
But nowadays, living in a city, you need to, someone needs to be working full-time.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is often it's two incomes you need. So I'm impressed at how you're talking like there still are options. So get pessimistic about the idea that anyone can work part-time and say own property, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't know about property.
Yeah.
But, well...
If they want to do... So once you have children, often... there was...
Well, I wasn't talking in that sense.
Yeah,
I don't actually know how it works when you have children.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the other thing is your relationship to money changes as well. Mine has. In the sense that I think, oh shit, I don't want to... I want to be able to... I've got to support her.
Set her up if she needs it.
With my partner as well. But also I don't expect to rely on him, to support, me entirely.
Yeah.
So, look, it's a huge sacrifice, but again, it comes back to your own personal choice about how you want to spend your life, and it's a luxury to be able to choose, I think. That might sound a bit, questionable, but that's the way I see it.
I think it's a good point, and it counters in the previous discussion with after an interview talking about, universal basic income, were they talking about, or in New Zealand funding artists? And you can see how that would come under attack from people saying, well, how come? Yeah, so it's a good debate to be having, I guess. And the question being how art then fits in with the rest of productive society,
So I think it's I guess it comes back to that idea that it's, and this is maybe a really naive, because I mean in history, artists were paid, they had studios, they had
what's the word?
I'm trying to just remember.
People who give them patronage.
So it's probably a bit fanciful that I'm saying that money does interfere, but that's how I feel it does. So therefore, I guess it leads you to think, well, the universal wage is, well, that's
it would change things.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been on the dole, and I kind of did, I strung that along for a while to help me. I was going to the studio every day, so that's probably not something I'm necessarily, proud of, but that was a choice I made, and it really helped me.
I think you have every right to be proud of it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important.
Yeah.
And it's important not just for you in terms of like maybe it was good for you at that time to make art, but actually I just think the society, it's important that we've got people who are going to a studio every day.
Yeah. And the reality is that if people, anyway, I guess that goes into another side of things. People who are unemployed or on a disability pension, I mean, I think there should be
survive.
Yeah, people have to be able to eat, don't they?
Yeah.
But in terms of, I feel like art will always be around, whether or not.
I think that's true.
Because that's where, that's our human expression, isn't it? Yeah. And I just feel I'm babbling now.
No, you're not. Actually,
Not at all.
it's deeply, it's deeply interesting.
Yeah,
No, it really is because it's talking about how art exists in society too. Like, that it, in some respects, it's like this peak activity of what you do when all the other things are taken care of in terms of the hierarchy of needs kind of thing.
Yeah.
Self-actualization at the top, but it's about like the Australian sort of social way of dealing or relating to art is something that many people have talked about and is different to say Europe or America, and it's a tension of that sort of pragmatic element of society versus this expressive, reflective. In some ways, it feels at times superfluous or unnecessary, at least just to brute survival. It's that kind of discussion, isn't it? Like how, and for artists individually, they have to, I guess, come to terms with what they're doing. Maybe.
Yeah.
Would you say that there are any? I'm guessing that maybe both of your daughters can be one of them. But are there any like defining things that have happened in your life, like, or maybe a key lecture at uni or a life event that's really directed your practice?
Well, I went to Jamaica for 6 weeks when I was about 24. That was pretty, like, in terms of, I guess that fed into my work quite a lot in terms of the imagery and the people, and it was a pretty amazing trip. I've enjoyed, I've worked with a few curators, and I've really enjoyed that process. That was because I think the other thing is that I wanted to say today is that I think I always thought, I can just make my work and I don't necessarily need to be out in the world. Well, now I really realise that no, I do need to. That work needs to be seen, and it really does need to. It doesn't actually exist. It sort of dies if it's not.
Yeah.
And working with a couple of curators that I had in the past, which was quite a while ago now, it was just a wonderful experience to see your work reflected through someone else and their thoughts on it, and that was really encouraging and interesting. Yeah. It was really wonderful. So I think that's a really worthy thing to do. Can't think of anything else specifically.
It's interesting that it seems like you've had some key experiences that have been overseas, as in, like you mentioned Jamaica, but also you said you travelled.
Yeah.
So what do you think in terms of making art in Australia? Do you feel like we need that engagement with Europe or not, or the rest of the world? Do you think we're isolated here as an art culture?
Well, I think we perhaps can be a bit more hung up.
In what way?
In what way? Well, I just think, there's a much bigger population over there. People are much more open to seeing art, experiencing art in their daily lives, and it's more acceptable, I guess. So here you have to be, and it's a small population here. You have to be quite sort of you have to really galvanise how you're going to do it, this gallery, that gallery, because it's there's just not the same kind of interest here, I suppose. That's maybe just one section of the art scene. But a bit hung up. Why did I say that? Just because, it goes into that whole art scene thing. People can be a bit, and I definitely have been like that in the past too, or probably still am.
What do you mean?
No, just that it becomes competitive. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, maybe competitive.
Sceney?
Yeah, sceney, but I guess that's pretty normal. But I think a place like New York, you probably got there's just so many people coming and going. It's just they've got to be a bit more open, a bit more relaxed, and they're having a lot of international people come through, so they'd be very open to new people, new work, and
it's a bit
different
more
ways of
closed
showing.
here.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So do you think that...
But like, for example, what you guys are doing, that's not closed. That seems very,
we'll try.
Yeah. So
Well, that was our motivation.
Yeah.
Was to throw it open. Yeah, well, hence like something on the side of the road that we could then put on the internet and try and get it out there. But definitely tapping into the idea of an art centre and what we could do, having moved out of Melbourne, what our relevance or our access to that or engagement. And then how you might just even challenge that a little bit. But yeah.
I think also, just artists need to show their work. So there's limited options. So, and, you don't, not everyone, there's space for everyone. There's all different sorts of work, different, I don't want to say levels, but different, different types and different audiences and stuff. But I just feel sometimes it's difficult to show your work here.
Right.
Yeah, whereas perhaps, I'm not sure, but perhaps there's more options. But perhaps there's more options available, in Europe or America when you're from overseas. I don't know, but yeah.
So possibly an exclusiveness?
Yeah, but I suppose that's in any scene, isn't it? There's an inbuilt kind of, you do this, then you do that, then you show there, then you show there.
Yeah.
But if you're foreign, then you're not aware of that, so perhaps you're more open
That's
to
really interesting when you just went up somewhere, just go up to the top gallery because you don't know yet.
That's right, it's quite good being
yeah.
from out of town because, you don't have the attachment to those.
Yeah.
That maybe.
So do you think that an awareness of all of that has shaped your practice? Like, do you think being in Australia and being aware of a kind of a, uptight scene, do you think that...
Oh God, I can't believe I said it's an uptight
No,
scene. It's
hang
me.
on.
Who's...
No.
It's actually me who's a bit uptight.
It's
Sorry,
me.
I'm
I
actually
put words in
projecting.
your mouth.
I know, it's true. It's true.
We like it.
I don't mind admitting it. Yeah.
I think it's a really pithy kind of observation.
Yeah.
But there's a... Maybe, I don't know, it sort of suggests that there's an anxiety or that there's something...
Which I think is relevant to the idea of art
totally
centre.
relevant, and
like
boundaries,
and
borders, and excluding anyone.
Yeah.
I've definitely felt a bit uptight navigating it myself. I think it comes back for me personally to the commercialisation of the work. So that's probably really what I'm projecting onto this scene, so-called scene, which is really just like a whole lot of people just trying to get things by. Yeah. So I think that's probably what it is that I have struggled in a way, or in my own way, where I'm still trying to work it out. How do I still make work and navigate my way through this sort of commercial world? And I thought about it the other day. I was thinking, well, really, I just think, if you want to get really into it,
That's what it's all about.
I think probably for me, making art has been a place where I've gone, I've created my own world there, So that's why it's a bit of a shock, sort of being thrust outside of myself, and which I think is what happens when you have a child, and it was already happening a bit before then, because it's sort of a place where I've created the rules, and I've so to actually, I don't mind putting it up on the wall. That's great. I don't really care about it once it's on the wall, but just that's where I just want to leave it. I just I didn't actually articulate that very well. But what am I trying to say? I'll just say it again just to try to get it right. Yeah, definitely. So making work for me was about creating my own world, following my own narrative, and telling my own kind of stories. And yeah, I don't really want to necessarily feel the need to commercialise that.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
nice.
Maybe that's a bit high and mighty, but
No.
and so perhaps that's why I can still do that, and maybe look into some other aspect of myself that I can commercialise, which might be waitressing or something like that.
So that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because this is what my partner Mark used to always say, that you've got to almost commercialise something quite far away from it,
Yeah.
to protect it.
Mm.
So it can be that sort of you maintain that relationship with yourself, or whatever it is, in terms of making an authentic work for you. It's not sort of
Yeah, I think that thing of trying to make money doing something that's kind of connected but not actually it. Like,
it can sort of
I've trained to be a teacher, and I also trained to be an art therapist, and both of them, an art teacher and an art therapist, and both of them were a disaster because
Really, yeah.
it's just frustrating. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to teach you art, and I don't want to do therapy with you, and
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to go home and make art.
Yeah.
So I think actually, being a waitress
something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
You
and
can't
then
deny
coming
what
home
it
and
is.
making art is a better option. Yeah.
It's a curious business, isn't it? The need to sort of aesthetically communicate, you know,
Yeah.
and to, well, we haven't asked this question. What we've asked people, which I think is a really interesting one, which is why do you persist with it? And I guess it sounds like you're questioning whether or not to persist in the same way. But
Yeah.
what do you think has kept you at it?
I just get a real, buzz from it, I guess. I just putting things together and creating something out of nothing. It just turns me on, really. So,
It's a good reason.
yeah, and I definitely have I've noticed I have physical reaction when something's, and it's in my mind, it's, you're onto something. That's all.
Yeah. You get the reward and
I reckon that's about there.
You're doing well.
Yeah. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
talking
much.
to
All
us.
right. Thanks for
Really
inviting
good.
me.